Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Breaking Bread Village, where we kind of have conversations. We sit down and break bread together. So, just want to thank you guys for checking in again. I'm really excited about our conversation that we're going to have today. And I won't go into a recap right now. I'm going to wait till I bring our guests in, but we are going to be kind of recapping some things that happened a few years ago. But what we want to really focus on is, this being a safe space for our guest, Christine, to be able to share her side of the story. I really am a believer in people being able to change. And I also am a believer in people being or feeling safe to speak on whatever they believe in. Nobody should feel intimidated or scared to speak their truth as long as they do it respectfully for me. So this is really important for me. I'm very excited. I'm glad that she showed some bravery to come on here. I'm sure it's not easy to talk about this. Nobody wants to tackle hard conversations, but we have to be able to move on in a healthy way. So I'm going to invite Christine on. I want to thank her too for taking some time out of her vacation to sit with us and talk about this. And I just want to let you guys know we kind of just got connected and, she reached out to me and I'm really happy that she did. Then I was able to invite her on so we could talk about it. So let me go ahead and invite Christine on right now. Hey,
Hi,
Christine, how are you?
I'm okay.
Awesome, awesome. Well, again, I was just telling them I'm really thankful that you decided to do this. I know it's not easy to talk about things, especially, some things that could be hard from our past and then to bring them back up can be a little bit difficult. And we don't have to even go into how it got brought back up, but it was brought up and it ignited some emotion out of people, and I'm sure it did for you as well, because a lot of times we want to leave stuff where they are. But I think this is really good for us to have this conversation. So again, I appreciate you for coming on. Quickly, I wanted to wait till you came on. I just want to kind of let people know kind of what we're talking about, and then we can go into. We have a short video clip, like 5 minutes, and then you can go into your part of it. Just really quickly, we're talking about 2017, 2017, and that was when Colin Kaepernick was doing the kneeling and kind of started that movement, so to speak. And it was some students here in town at the high school who wanted to kind of do the same thing in regards to kneeling to just kind of make their voices heard because they themselves had gone through some, racism or different things here in this community. So that was their way of peacefully protesting. They were going to do the kneeling. I'm trying to make this really quick because it was such a long thing leading up to this, but they were going to do the kneeling and they got some death threats from mostly older white men that threatened to kill them. And these are students. So they wanted to change it then to just doing the arm linking because they got a little bit fearful, which was understandable. And when that day came for the game. I remember it really vividly because we all met at the Kroger's in the parking lot because we wanted to make sure all the kids were kind of kept together so we could be accountable for them because there were a lot of kids, teenagers there that were alone, like their parents weren't there with them. So we want to kind of look out for them because we were directed to come in the back part of the school so that we weren't going through because of the threats that they got. They got a lot of death threats. And so with that said, we came in the back way. We're back there. The national anthem started, and that's kind of where you came on the scene. What I want to do, Christine, is show everybody a quick clip and and again, I want to beforehand say that I hope that this doesn't bring up too much emotion for you as well. But I appreciate you for letting us be honest here and just be open with each other. So I'm going to play it real quick. And like I said, it's about 5 or 6 minutes and everybody can be caught up on what took place at that time. So give me 1 second and I'm going to share this and we can get and watch this quickly. And then we can go ahead and have this conversation. So, all right. So this here, of course, is kind of at the beginning when the children first came out.
You can see the principal there he just left the view, but here's in that blue.
Mr. Jaster?
Yeah, the principal of Midland High, correct?
Yes.
Right now, I'm showing you a view from underneath the scoreboard of the game, finding American flag. Some students have announced their plans to protest the national anthem. So if you're just tuning in, this is right between Midland and high school football. There's some students underneath the scoreboard here.
So that right there are the counter protesters that showed up.
Which were mostly veterans, from my understanding.
Yes. It's funny now that I watch this, I know a couple of them that are standing over there. I didn't even pay attention to them that day actually.
That's my dad.
Where?
I believe he's the one who just left the camera, but he was there too.
Oh, did he have the camouflage jacket on?
I believe so. Like I said, I hadn't reviewed the tape, but
Okay.
I don't remember what he was wearing for sure. But.
There is a guy towards the end that will have on a camouflage jacket, so.
I think that's him. I can't tell. It's kind of small on my screen, but I'm pretty sure that's
him.
is
it? Okay. Oh, that's right. You're on your phone. Yeah, it probably does look a little smaller.
Oops.
Well, this seems a lot longer watching it like this. I never watched a video after this happened. So I see a couple of my sons there.
I really do, now I can say too, I really do appreciate the fact that they didn't kneel. That was a huge gesture to say, we get it and we still want to make our point. And I really do think I respect that a ton.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. Okay, I think this is we're getting towards the end here. That girl right there, this was after a couple people had yelled in the children's faces because we didn't show that part where people were yelling at the kids. So she was a little emotional, which was to be expected.
Yeah. Not my sign, by the way. The sign was given to me. I put it on without thinking.
Gotcha. Oh, when you showed up, they gave it to you?
Yeah.
So I think this is towards the end. So we can stop sharing there. So basically, I just want to kind of talk about that. And I just want to preface it with the fact that this is not to demonize you at all, because that's not my style. This is more of a being honest about what happened and then moving forward. And especially since you said that you had some change of heart. So I really want to talk about that because I find that very interesting, because a lot of people, once they have a stand, a lot of times people don't change, right? We kind of like stay how we are. And I also want to give a little shout out to the women group, just real quick. They were also there, and they were actually asked to be there by the kids, because they kind of volunteered to stand guard with them, so to speak, to kind of be a line of defense, because again, these were children that were threatened by adults. So I really want to give a shout out to the woman group, because that was nice of them to do that, for sure, because the kids were very afraid. So anyway, I want you to go ahead, Christina, and just kind of talk to me about that day, and then we can go on and talk about where you are now.
Okay. So just to preface it to say, it's probably really echoey in here, sorry.
It's okay.
If I come from a proud military veterans, I'm not a veteran myself, but my father served, deployed over to Iraq a few times, Afghanistan once. So very patriotic, very law enforcement, all of
Sure.
that. I recognized that there was a problem with law enforcement and people of color, and there being way too many incidents is a nice term.
Yeah.
So I understood like where Colin Kaepernick was coming from, but like I said, I just didn't like the disrespect to the flag and the anthem being so patriotic. So I thought the two could mesh. You know what I mean? I thought we could still stand together and agree that racism is wrong and police brutality is wrong. We need change and all of that without,
Sure.
disrespecting the flag. So we came to the event. We worked with some groups prior and got some flags, handed out flags to people. We got some attitudes on the way in of people who didn't want to carry flags, which is fine. But
and just to interject real quick, and I'm sorry, I just want to tell you, a lot of people were aware that the kids were threatened by groups that were supposed to be coming. So do we know if any of those people that was in that group that was standing there were the people that threatened? Of course not, but
right.
it did happen prior. So that's where some of the resistance came from, because it's like, we don't know.
Who are you?
Exactly. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and I just want to take this moment to state, I mean, obviously, I did not threaten personally. I didn't know of any threats at the time.
Right.
That's just terrible, and I disagree with that on every level, no matter what you're protesting.
Sure.
I applauded the students, even if I disagreed 100% with what they were doing, which I didn't. Applauded them for their bravery to use that First Amendment right and stand up, because
Sure.
when you stand up, sometimes you fall and have
Yes.
to apologize and all that. So
Right.
trying to focus in. So I was actually wearing a shirt. Here's my confession. I was actually wearing a shirt. You can see on parts of the video that said "All Lives Matter."
Yes.
And at the time, I didn't understand, didn't comprehend, didn't see that that was such a slap in the face to, what Black Lives Matter was trying to do and what Colin Kaepernick was trying to point to and get attention on. I got very distracted by that, and so I still do believe that all lives matter, but I understand how that, as a response to Black Lives Matter, is so very wrong. So
Sure.
I apologize for that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I don't know. Do you want to ask a question so I don't?
I do, because I want to, because I really appreciate this, because sometimes in different settings you can't ask these questions because emotions are so high, so people aren't really available to speak in a sensible way. So since we're having this conversation, I'm trying to understand, and this is not even in a judgment way. I really want to know, when people get upset about the Black Lives Matter and then say, and I shouldn't say people, I'll just speak to you because you can't speak for people, of course, but I'm just trying to understand, what is the mindset when if I say Black Lives Matter and then you say, well, all lives matter, what does that mean? Because I've always tried to understand, because of course, quite naturally, we understand that everybody matters, right? So I guess I'm trying to understand, what does that mean? Help me understand.
I mean, like you said, I certainly can't speak for everyone.
Sure.
I think for most people who have said that or felt that,
Sure.
it's a very immediate reaction without really considering all the complexities. It's symbolizing something that's very complex. Yes. Lives matter, especially anybody who dies that should not happen. That just should have not. And so yes, sometimes that and that me, but they signed up for this job that's very dangerous, and they're in this position, and I have nothing but respect for that. But it's
Sure.
As just being a person driving your car, and have to worry about that getting pulled over and all of that just because of your skin color. So I think it also comes from a place of, I've heard a lot of people say recently, I'm colorblind. Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's a privilege to be colorblind. And it's, to say you don't see color is something that only people who haven't experienced it personally can say, because it's every day, I don't.
Right.
So that's where it comes from, I think. And like I said, it's just oversimplifying and simplifying something that's complex, and it's just kind of disrespectful as a whole to say, well, all lives matter. It's the analogy that a lot of people have used. The house is on fire, everybody's house on the street, and a Black house is on fire. That's where you call. That's where you send the fire department. That's where you send the help. That's what's happening, and that's what needs our focus. No matter whether we're part of that group or not, we all need to stand up as humans and say this isn't right.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. I do want to get into, how you had this epiphany, but I want to ask a question too, because as you said, law enforcement, military, is really important to you. And, when people kneel, it's a way of, in your mind, or whoever else finds it disrespectful, right? So I'm trying to understand, what is because I don't know, I grew up in church, right? So even in church, and I went to Catholic school for a couple years, when we went to pray or show reverence, we would get on our knees and kneel, right?
Sure.
So and I'm not trying to say that they are the exact same things, but my point is that kneeling was always seen as a sign of respect and reverence. So where did it, where did that disconnect come, where when people kneeled for this particular thing become a disrespectful thing. And I, you know, honestly, and I know you don't know me, but I am a very inquisitive person. I truly want to understand because I believe this is the way for us to find some type of common ground or some type of connection, some type of way to be able to understand each other. So I'm really genuinely asking these questions. So I'm not trying to be like,
No,
I hope it doesn't come
honest,
off like that.
to be totally honest, I really don't know why the kneeling was automatically seen as disrespect. I think it was
Okay.
a rush to judgment.
Okay.
And when enough people are saying something, like when people that are on your side are sort of saying something like, hey, we're mad about this, it's so easy to kind of just fall into that and be like, yeah, we should be mad about this. But
Right.
afterwards, I remember reading articles and seeing like, yes, kneeling is not necessarily disrespectful. It's not like they're burning the flag. It's not like they're desecrating the flag. So yeah, I found that interesting after the fact to go, maybe he really didn't, maybe he wasn't trying to insult America or the anthem or all of that. He was just saying, hey, this is supposed to be America, where, you know, we have these ideals that we're supposed to stand for, but it doesn't really equate to that for people of color. So to be honest, I think there's a lot of, especially with social media these days, you know, seeing somebody's opinion or a meme or whatever the case and being like, yeah, I'm mad about that too. And when something matters to you, you do have an opinion about it. And you really do have to check yourself and go, okay, before I, you know, share this meme or agree with this person, you know, let me really think about it. And what I tend to do now is kind of like read through the comments and say, oh, well, there's a different perspective I didn't think of. And because we're all very, I mean, we think we're smart, but we only can go by our own experiences.
We have a lot to learn, all of us. Yeah, we all have a lot to learn. So thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to just share a comment that Joan shared. She just said her son's father and her son, who actually was one of the people that helped, you know, kind of coordinate that protest that day. Was one of the leaders of the event, as she said, are both military and they fight for our freedoms, and the flag is supposed to represent our rights and our freedoms. So, and that's the part that always was confusing to me because, you know, it's like, well, I thought we had the freedom because, and I hate to put sides because I hate the whole us versus them or you versus me, but a lot of people on the other side, so to speak, always talk about the First Amendment and, you know, these rights and these freedoms. And it's like, well, do they just apply to you or do they apply to everybody? So that's always been a question of mine. So I really want you to talk to me about kind of how you had this epiphany because, you know, just being very transparent that day, you were a different person than you are right now. Right. That's just the truth. Right. And it was scary for some of the kids, you know, and we didn't show some things, but I mean, you know, it was other adults and people screaming at the kids. And I remember, you know, kind of looking at you. You probably don't remember me, of course, but I remember looking at you because I'm going to be totally honest. I was like, am I going to have to fight this? You know, am I going to have to fight today? Just being honest, because you were so, you know, you were very passionate and upset about that. And my children were out there, you know what I mean? And like people that I feel like I helped raise or were connected to me some type of way. So it was this feeling of Mother Bear that jumped in like, oh my God, what is happening right now? You know, so tell me, so I don't want to dwell on that, but I do want to just you know, kind of paint the picture of what was going on that day with the kids, their fear already prior. And then once they got there and that happened. So what sparked this change? You know, because I really do want to focus on that as well. You know, the change in your epiphany that you had.
Well, I think the best way to put it is immediately following it, of course, I had a ton of hate shown my way.
Okay, like you mean like emails? Or I mean not emails, people don't email, but
mostly comments on the news articles, comments on my posts. At the time I posted some stuff on Facebook about it, sharing it. Of course, I deleted all that once there was so much hate. The thing is, when your heart is in the right place and when your intentions are good, and then you're met with such, which you can probably say for the kids too, they felt like they were met with, you know, such conflict when their intentions were good. So, I mean, we're all so much more similar than we realize. But when your intentions are good, and mine were, like I said, I did not do any death threats. I did not want any harm to come to anyone. I thought we all should be there, putting our opinion out. But once afterwards happened and it was put to my attention, the privilege that I had to know in what I was doing, I pretty much knew I was going to get arrested, and to not be fearful of that, to be, yep, I'll get arrested. I didn't really think about the charges and the cost and the court
Right.
and all that. I didn't think all that through, but I certainly didn't have to fear for my physical safety. I didn't have to worry about that in the way that people of color have to and face every day, just getting pulled over. It's hard to even fathom. I'll be honest. I try. I want to understand more and show that compassion, but it's very hard for us as white people to comprehend it. So part of it was all of the hate that I got, and just seeing the people that were kind enough to explain, their hate a little bit and kind of go into, hey, you're so privileged, or hey, you're so this or that, and make me see the light a little bit. But it took a while. I can't say there's like a certain time that I regretted it right away for all sorts of reasons, but the whole learning about the fact that all lives matter is such a disrespect to the entire movement, then I was kind of like, ooh, definitely shouldn't have worn that shirt, definitely shouldn't have worn the, American flag. Like, I was not in a good state of mind. I don't want to go into detail. I was going through a lot in my personal life. And so the decision-making processes going up to it were just not good. But so since then, with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the more recent ones, I've participated in some of the Black Lives Matter protests in Bay City and the one in Midland, which was amazing, and the vigil was great. And so I think participating in that especially has made me really be like, okay, you don't have to be all the way ones. You don't have to hate law enforcement to want change and to know that there needs to be change. You don't have to hate them all.
Right.
Okay. Sorry. So, yeah. Sorry, we have children here.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I appreciate you.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're okay. No, and you're right. We don't have to hate anybody to want to be safe or to be protected or to feel loved, or we don't have to do any of that. So yeah. So did you start maybe kind of researching more? Like, what? I guess I'm just trying to figure out.
Sure. I mean, right away, people's comments and people would send me information, and I looked at stuff right away. I didn't really come out. I honestly tried to distance myself from it right away because the legal troubles and the costs and all of that. And I got pregnant, and so I didn't want to go to jail. So I just pled out. And so I have stuff on my record that I wish was not on my record that goes beyond trespassing, unfortunately. So, but the point is, I mean, I knew pretty early on after it that, like, not only did I make a mistake by participating in the way that I did, but like the certain ways that I felt that were incorrect. Mainly the all lives matter thing.
Sure.
Because I would not have, trying to think now, would I have been on the other side with y'all? I don't think so, because
that's okay.
That's a good question. I think,
you know what? I'm gonna say this real quick, Christine. The men and women that were standing there, I'm sorry, my allergies have been acting up. The men and women that were standing there, I didn't feel, I was okay with them being there because I am a person that I believe that everybody should have their voice. And even though I feel there was a reason for people wanting to kneel or wanting to protest during that time, even though I feel like they are valid in their feelings. I also think it's okay for the military to stand there and feel, because I think there's sometimes a disconnect. Yeah, pick her up if you need to. You can pick her up if you need to.
No, you're good. She was about to fall.
Okay. Yeah, I think like just as you're saying right now, I think sometimes it's a disconnect, and I always challenge people to really read the anthem, read it, all of it, not just the part that we sing, read all of it to really understand and try to dig deeper into why people that look like me don't feel like that's really yes, you know, and I think that's where where like I can't stand for something that's not standing for me, if that makes sense, you know.
Sure. And I think I want to say too, I think the veterans group, for example, I don't want to speak for anybody, but I think we were all kind of coming up from a place where we're saying, hey, we love America. America's a great country. America is not about racism. It shouldn't be about racism. We're proud of our country. You know, there's just that in between where I think when you get on one side and you just don't hear the other side. And that's the dangerous part where you don't listen to all of the sides, you know?
Oh, sure. And that's why I'm happy that we're doing this right now, you know, and I think that too, that's where, you know, that privilege comes from, that people don't realize that yes, it should be freedoms and everybody should feel, you know, so blissfully running around America, but everybody doesn't feel like that, you know, and I think that's where that needs to really happen, where people can try to understand that empathy comes in, you know, that even though that doesn't happen to you, it happens to somebody else, you know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Yeah, it's not, we have to deal in reality. That's the biggest thing. And what you can only go on what you've experienced and what you've learned. And that's why I think it's so important to want to hear other people's experiences. I got some hate on that Facebook post the other day because I asked you for examples of racism in Midland, because I know they're there, but I don't know what they are because I've never experienced it, you know, and I think we all need to hear it, and we all need to know that it's everywhere, even precious Midland, and we cannot change anything until we look at reality.
And you know, and that's again very big of you to be at this point, you know, and like you said a couple of years ago, you weren't there either. And I think that's a beautiful part of this, is that we can all understand that we grow at levels.
Sure.
So we have to respect where each person is on their level, you know what I mean? And realize that just because you don't feel how I feel, or you're not experiencing what I experience, we can still respect each other.
Right. So and hopefully we can all come from a place of, I don't know everything, and I do have things to learn. No matter until we're dead, we have things to learn, and we can grow and be better.
Sure.
So that's part of it too. Is like lots of people tend to hold their opinions so strongly, and they know they're right, you know, and they just won't ever budge or consider that maybe they could be a little off. You know?
Yeah. So I want to ask you too. So since you're, you know, kind of changed, have you? I know you kind of mentioned to me that you were kind of talking to some, you know, family members or friends about white privilege. Have you kind of met any resistance from people that were like, wait a minute, you were fighting with us, and now you're, you know, have you experienced that?
People don't get it. And the thing is, you have to want to get it. And sometimes I think it's very easy to just continue on the way you are and go, well, what is this new term, white privilege? You know, what? Right. I grew up tough. I grew up poor. I grew up whatever, fill in the blank. I'm not privileged. They hear that part of the word and they think, well, I didn't have privilege. And I'm like, you're just not even listening. Like, it's about your color, and that privilege that just being born white or non, you know, whatever, affords you. And you don't realize that until someone shows you, and you have to be willing to see it, you know. Right. To me, it's very simple now at this point, but the first time I heard that term, I was probably like, wait, what? So
what did you feel when you first heard it? I'm just curious.
I mean, I think confusion, like, wait, what does that mean? And I cared enough to want to know what it meant. But I do think sometimes we get these like buzz terms, and they get thrown around so well. Like, just on social media, it's like every 2 seconds somebody's saying, oh, your privilege is showing. Like that. I mean, it might be, but that doesn't help really forward the conversation. And I think sometimes, you know, we can get so combative with people that, like, you're really not getting the message across. You're not helping anybody understand, and they have to want to understand too. You know, we can all talk on social media forever and never change anyone's mind, but I can tell you that I've read things on social media that have changed my mind, that have given me more perspective. So if you're open to it, you can learn and hopefully be better and more well-rounded. I think we're all very narrow-minded unless we really try hard to
Yeah, I really try to meet people where they are. I really do genuinely try to understand and have these conversations, because I think the more we talk and express and share openly and truthfully, we can kind of understand each other.
Right.
So, and like you said, in regards to white privilege, I know I had someone say that to me, well, I grew up poor and, I slept on a, floor and, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, and that's terrible, of course. I mean, who wants to do that? But I was trying to get them to understand that, but you didn't have those hardships because you were white. It's certain things that I know for a fact have happened to me solely because of my skin color. No matter how qualified I am, or what type of gifts or talents or whatever I have, because of my skin color, that's all they see. And then don't add in the fact that I have locks, or don't always speak perfect, English language, but that kind of stuff, people put it into it's funny because my mom told me years ago, the reason why she named me Aaron was because she didn't want me to have to deal with that, because she grew up in an era where she still had the, white only, and colored only, and, segregation and having to work for white families. So she didn't want me to have to deal with that, simply because she already knew I was going to deal with stuff because of my skin color, but not because of my name, so I really, take that into consideration too, and try to tell people that as far as, privilege. And so, well, I'm really happy that you had the epiphany, and sometimes people have that, kind of that moment where it kind of goes, aha. And maybe as you stated, after the fact, when you got arrested and things, maybe that kind of woke you up like, wait a minute, I don't want to, because you kind of planned. I mean, you knew you were going to kind of get arrested.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I went into the whole idea of it being like really proud of what I was about to stand for.
You can tell,
Yeah, for me, it was more about being patriotic, standing up for the flag, standing up for the anthem. But to be honest and to be real again, and just to, highlight what I think a lot of people don't know, I didn't know the anthem went beyond what we sang.
No, a lot of people don't.
I mean,
no, I'm laughing because I'm not laughing at you. I'm just saying, I think a lot of people don't realize that there's a couple more verses. Yeah.
Right. Okay, your mom's not in here? Okay, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. I know you're on vacation. You're on your mom vacation. I appreciate you for even taking this time. I don't want to hold you all night. I just, but no, I think a lot of people don't understand that there's more to it. So that's what I always tell people. Once emotions settle down, once everybody kind of can breathe and actually talk civilly to each other and respectfully to each other, because I would have talked to you that night. I mean, that's how I am. I would have literally talked to you that night.
I remember. I don't know if it was with you, but I remember trying to engage in conversation, and I don't know if it was somebody from the women group or whatever, but they were definitely encouraging everybody just to be silent.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think, okay, maybe that wasn't the place to have a conversation, but I remember trying to engage with people, and that's probably where it turned bad too. And maybe that's why they just wanted the kids, especially, to still be silent.
I think just to tell you about that, as far as the women's group, they literally came to be a silent defender or protector. So their whole purpose was to not be the focal point. So I think that's where that came from, where they did not want to be about them, but about the kids. They were literally there as a shadow, so to speak, a guard to protect the kids, which, the kids really appreciated, because they were so scared. And it almost made me a little bit emotional watching the video, because I saw a couple of kids that, you can see, and I'm a crybaby, so if I cry, it's okay. It's not towards you or anything. It's just, I don't know, because I hadn't watched that video really, even after the the situation, and to see the fear in their face and the fact that they still stood there so tall. And one thing I will say too, and you probably can attest to this, none of the kids ever yelled back at anybody. They
No.
never, I mean, they sat there very respectfully and was stood there very respectfully. So I really do want to applaud them for that, because they are so, and that was their first time dealing with anything like that.
Which honestly is extremely impressive based just on their age too. If you remember what you were like as a teenager, didn't have the judgment or the self-control and any of that. So yes, I agree. I still applaud them for how they handled the whole situation.
Yes, I was very feisty at that age. So, and I can be a little feisty now, but I've grown a lot. But I definitely would not have probably been that poised as they were. I mean, they were really respectful, and but just seeing their fear again, it's like this is such a teaching moment for everybody, And I'm sure even for you, looking back on that and looking at yourself, I mean, we all could do that. We all could look back at ourselves and kind of see some things that we could have changed about ourselves. So, again, like I said, I'm really happy that you are understanding the Black Lives Matter, and I'm sure that you've been kind of faced with some resistance with some people around you. I mean, because so especially when you have people in your family and friends that are, military and police. Again, I have an uncle. I mean, my uncle has been, I mean, he was a veteran, he was in the Vietnam War. I mean, I respect everything that he did.
Right.
It has nothing to do with disrespect to the military or police officers. I have no problem with police officers. I was telling somebody the other day, I have a police officer that grew up on the street. Well, he didn't grow up. I grew up on the street growing up, and he was a police officer, and he lived on our street. And everybody knew Big Day. That's what we called him Big Day, because he was like 6'6" and this huge guy. But he was a cop, and we all knew him. Kids played with him, played basketball. He always sat at the McDonald's on the corner. I mean, so we all knew him. So it was never a thing about hating cops. It's the idea that, if someone that's white commits a crime, they may not get the same punishment or the same treatment as somebody. So it has nothing to do with not facing consequences. If someone commits a crime, hey, you commit a crime, you get whatever consequence. You can be correct if you need to. Don't worry about that.
No, I'm just keeping her from stuff. Sorry.
Okay. No, don't apologize.
No, I think one of the important things to point out is I think things get so simplified, whether it's on social media or just in people's opinions. Like, it's like Black Lives Matter versus cops. Like, you either are for the Black Lives Matter and you hate cops, or you are like pro law enforcement and you hate Black Lives Matter. And that's just not the reality that we need to be in if we're trying to make any changes.
Yeah, people made it about that.
Each other to make forward progress. I mean, I don't know. My sign at this protest now says, good cops hold all cops accountable. And it says something like accountability now, reform. And then on the other side, I said, Rodney King was beaten 30 years ago. Like, how have we not made any progress and really gotten worse?
Yeah.
Now that we have body cams and we have all of this technology, and it's like, how is this still happening? It's just baffling to me.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I don't know what to do to change it. That's the thing too. I think I care very deeply about social issues, but I have solutions that I can suggest, but I don't know what's going to work, and I don't know, exactly how to fix it. I think the police reforms that are happening are a step in the right direction.
So you do agree that they do need to be kind of reformed?
Yes, I think, being in social work myself, I know that law enforcement comes on the scenes as first responders where they really need some more of a social work touch than, to come in. They're just trying to uphold the law. They're trying to hopefully keep the peace, but sometimes things get escalated instead of de-escalated. And I think it comes down to, everybody says training is not enough.
No.
There are people who must be just absolutely either racist or just hateful or fearful, and they're reacting too quickly with a.
I think it's a little bit of all of those. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think fear, and that's and just to kind of preface it with this real quick, I want to just say when you say, what can I do? What can I do? This right here is where we start. Okay, having this conversation and being able to admit that we weren't always right. And that's everybody. I'm not just saying you. I'm saying just as generally speaking, that we weren't always right, and we have some learning to do. And since you said, from a social work perspective, what do you how do you feel about that, being someone to be called in as opposed to a police officer in those situations? How would you feel? Because most times with social work, you build somewhat of a rapport, right, with your client, so you kind of learn their ins and outs and kind of what triggers them. So if you were coming on a scene with somebody in high passion, high, anxiety, high whatever, how would you
yeah, I mean,
with that?
like I said, I always want to say I don't pretend to have all the solutions.
Sure.
But I think one thing that law enforcement can improve upon is just the knowledge of the fact that, I don't know the statistic, but there are quite a few people among us dealing with all levels of mental illness versus
Sure.
the stress of the day versus drugs. I mean, there's all kind of things that can affect people's behavior. So
sure.
when you come on the scene and somebody's acting a certain way and you immediately are like, oh, we got to take them down. If they're struggling with certain kind of things, taking them down is not going to be the right course of action.
Right.
So I think they need, I don't know, it's tough. It's very complex.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether, like, should cops have more training when it comes to the social work side? Should a social worker be, or a person who is trained in that de-escalation or recognizing the symptoms of, various things, be on calls? I don't know. Everything costs money and there's never money.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like, who knows
It's a lot of conversations, a lot of questions to have in regards to that. I know some people have said, wonder if a social worker comes with the cop, and the cop is just kind of there to stand guard to make sure it does not get into. But who knows?
Right.
It's so many. We want change, of course, but there are a lot of questions surrounding that. It's just I'm really, I don't know. I was very excited today. I was supposed to take a nap earlier before I did this, and I couldn't take a nap because I was really excited to have this conversation with you. In regards to police reform, I'm glad that you were able to say that, because especially coming from your background, so to speak, for you to be able to say that and acknowledge that there are some changes. For me, I really want to see, because I think when you touched on fear, I think fear is I think from day one, some people, especially who are Caucasian, are kind of ingrained or taught, or because of imagery, visuals, whatever we want to say, are taught that Black people are scary. I mean, that's just a reality. People have this fear based on, videos or the news or whatever. And it's this
a million different things affect that we don't, nobody ever, that's the thing too, I've been telling people when it comes to all of this coming up lately.
Yeah.
Very few people will say, yes, I'm racist, I'm a white supremacist, for example.
Sure.
Very few people are going to admit that. Most
Sure.
of us have deep ingrained biases, prejudices, opinions, fears, whatever it is, and we don't even realize it or face it or
until it comes up. And I think that's what happened with the kneeling. I think that's what happened with Black Lives Matter. I think when it was almost like poking a bear. And once that happened, people just, the rage some people had, I'm like, wait a minute, all I do is want to live. Why are you so upset that I want to live? You know what I mean? That I want to live. I have sons, and they all are over 6 feet. They're huge, and they were tall at very young ages, and people saw, and they had facial hair at young ages, and people would see them as a threat. I know I have someone here that commented and said, on the video at the school, there were only 3 police. And then her son, when he was toilet papering, 8 police surrounded him. I know what that feels like. I remember I've been in like a routine traffic stop, and like all these police cars show up. I'm like, what am I about to do? You know what I'm saying? But it's this mindset of automatic defense or being on guard when you deal with Black people. So when you're scared, and if you have that ingrained and you don't even realize you have it sometimes, and that big Black man comes out of his car, or is walking towards you, it's his fear. And I think sometimes people react with that emotion, and that's partly where we are right now, with people getting killed, because it's like this fear, which is unfortunate.
Right.
So
I felt threatened. That's all you have to say, and then it's all okay. And the thing that I think really should be mentioned that's a little uncomfortable to say is that
no, say it.
Yeah. The whole idea of the thin blue line started probably as a great concept of we support each other, we back each other, sometimes the lines might be fuzzy of like, is this right or wrong? But I support you, I back you. And that's where, since George Floyd, I've heard at least one story of a cop who stopped another cop who was in the process of, doing the chokehold or whatever it was. And I was like, that's what we need more of. When somebody is with you and says, hey, wait a minute, like, let's slow down, help each other be better. Like, don't just say, okay, whatever you do, I support it, and I'll back you up, and I'll lie for you, and I'll, let's have our investigations of police misconduct be done by other police organizations. Like, no, that doesn't make sense, and that's not gonna get the truth.
Yeah. And I think, and I agree with you 100%. And I think also that, we all protect each other, right? I mean, I think that this is kind of like a thing that it's always so funny to me, because I didn't grow up here. I grew up in the inner city, and it was always this thing about, if you snitch, right? Snitches get stitches, and you're not supposed to tell, on the street. But police officers do the same thing. I mean, it's the same mentality. It's all that same type of mentality that I'm going to protect you at all costs. And I think there was a woman, I cannot find the article, but I think there was a police officer in Chicago, I believe, that, and if I got the city wrong, somebody help me out with that, but that she did tell that her fellow officer was doing a chokehold or on some, being a little too rough with someone. And I think she got fired. So I think it's this fear, just like within the military, just like, I mean, it's all these, and I call it gang mentality, because to me, it's all the same. I'm not calling them gangs, but you get what I'm saying. It's the same mentality where, I'm going to protect you at all costs, no matter what, because we're all in this together, so.
Right. And maybe there's some spot in the middle where, like, okay, you messed up as a cop, like you used too much force, for example, and maybe there's a middle ground before it's criminal charges. I mean, I think in certain cases, criminal charges are definitely legitimate. But like, there doesn't seem to be a middle ground. There seems to be like, you're rubber stamped on everything you do, or like you're a murderer, And so as law enforcement, it's got to be a scary time to be law enforcement too, because situations, where they have no idea what's going on, and it's
but that's for me. I always say that's their job. That's what they signed up for.
That's true. Nobody made them.
Yeah, and I'm not taking away from their fears or apprehensions, because they're still human. For me, it's just, and this is one thing that I am right down the line on is, if you commit a crime, whoever commits that crime should be held the same way. That's my only thing is, you should be held accountable like somebody else who committed the same crime would be held accountable. So, well, I kind of want to circle back and just kind of ask you before we kind of end here shortly, is there anything that you would like to like, I don't know, because I know you said you were really remorseful and kind of regretted that situation. Is there anything else that you want to say about that particular day?
I guess like I've told you in our private conversations, I don't recall
Uh-oh, hope I didn't lose her. Let's see. She is in a hotel right now, so maybe she lost connection. Oh, there she goes.
I'm having trouble connecting.
Okay, there you go. Now you're back. Okay, I was trying to say things to fill in the time. Go ahead. You were saying you didn't recall, and then you kind of froze up.
Yeah, that's ironic. I really don't remember exactly what was said. Like, I watched some of the videos and I go, oh, okay, I didn't know I used those words.
You
in
use
my
some, you
passionate
use
statement.
some,
But
you
so
use
if
some
anything, I'd
words.
want to apologize to any of the students who felt, any kind of intimidation or anything. Like I said, I was never a threat. Just felt strongly and wanted to get my point across, even though it was misguided. And so I do apologize for that. I will never again say all lives matter. I'll just explain that for people who need it explained, but I didn't realize how wrong that was to say in response. So that's the main thing. I just wanted to apologize for that, and apologize to the law enforcement officers who had to deal with me that day.
Because you weren't moving. You're like, you got to drag me out of here. Christine, and I make jokes, but I really want to say, and I don't care. I know a lot of people, may feel like, you really haven't changed, or did she really change? I'm going to tell you from me to you, I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate you for apologizing, because that means a lot. I think we all have to kind of, humble ourselves and really self-reflect, and kind of see, the path that we were on. Maybe I needed to change that. So I appreciate you for acknowledging that. That means a lot. And I appreciate you for trying to educate others, now that you've had your newfound knowledge or epiphany, or, inner soul.
A series of aha moments is how I would describe it. Like,
yes.
You really just have to look in the mirror and go, wait a minute, I don't want to be the person that apparently people are seeing me as,
Yeah.
So even though that's not who I think I am and not how I'm coming across, if that many people are seeing that from me, then, what do I need to change in my message? What's
It says a lot.
incorrect,
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes it's not even so much incorrect for me. It's just a matter of growth, maturity. You're growing, you're evolving, and that's okay. Again, I want to say thank you. I appreciate it. And we all can kind of take a look deep down, and when people kind of see things about us, yes, sometimes we do have to kind of look back and say, what do I want to do better, and how do I want to be represented?
Right.
So that takes a big person to even come here, and talk about it openly. It's been 3 years or so, for you to even bring it, kind of talk about it again, says a lot. So I appreciate you for coming on. I really am happy that we were able to do this, because the last time I saw you, it was not nice. It was not nice. So, but again, I would have talked to you that day, because that's just how I am. I sometimes we have to let go of the emotion and try to understand each other, even if we still walk away and say, I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me, but we can be respectful. And I think that's what we have to learn right now in these times, that we can be different. We can think differently, because we all have different experiences. You've never been harassed simply because you're white, or if you have, tell me about it. But by a police officer, or by people, even still right now where we live, I have people that still tell me go back to Africa, and I'm like, give me the ticket, please. I will get out of here. Give me the ticket. I think you got froze again, but. Anyway, you'll see this later, or if you can hear me on the other end, I thank you so much. I'm going to let you go, because I know you're on your vacation with your daughter. So, there you go. I was saying bye to you. I think you froze up again, but I'm going to let you go, and we will kind of reconvene here in a minute. But again, I just want to thank you guys for coming on today and watching this. I'm really happy to have this conversation. Most people who know me know I love to talk. I love to connect with people in whatever way that we can, because I think it's really important to do that. I think it's important for us to try to understand each other the best that we can, because I really do believe that once you have some type of understanding, that's where you can grow. That's where you can connect on some level. And again, even if you have to walk away saying, I don't agree with your methods, your mindset, or your actions, I can still say I respect you enough to walk away peacefully. And that's what I believe Christine has learned. And I think that we all can learn that. And again, I really thank her for being brave enough to do that. I know people who saw her a couple years ago, she was not shown in the best light. And so for her to be able to say, I had a change of heart, I see things a little bit differently. I applaud that. And I appreciate it. And I'm glad that she was willing to have this conversation with me, because this is how we grow. We have to connect some type of way. So this is great. And I know she was a little nervous, but I told her, honey, I'm not about ambushing or trying to make people feel bad, because we're all growing. We're all ever learning and ever changing. So this is a beautiful moment. This is a beautiful time to go from one passionate stance to being able to kind of reach within, see things a little bit differently, and respect people enough to say, I see you. And I may not understand everything that you're going through, but I see you. And that's what we have to do. So I appreciate you guys. I'm really excited about this. I was so excited that I couldn't even take a nap, because I love this kind of stuff. This is what life is all about, growing and trying to grow together. We will make change, one conversation at a time. Thanks so much. Bye.